Good morning. Hi there. Nice to see everybody. Happy
There's gonna be
Friday.
a couple people late today. Linda and Girija.
Okay. I did get that message from Linda. Thank you for
Bless
letting
you.
me know about Girija too. Yes, apparently there's a lot going on today, a lot of different options of online events, and people have to get on and off, pick and choose, and
I
totally
may have
understand.
to pop off for just a short time.
Okay.
And it's my granddaughter's costume parade at school.
Oh
And
my
she sent me a note telling me that she wants me to watch the parade. So I will be listening, but I am going to be, I'll have my picture off, but I will be listening, but it's a really important thing for me to do.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I apologize.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Grandchildren always come first. They're above anything else. They are above.
Right? Above the line,
They
at
are
the
above
top
the
of the
line, at
sheet.
the very
Right.
top. Yes. Thank you so much, y'all.
Oh gosh. Well, good. So, yes, mornings are always interesting getting started. So we have, I think, a few people who are missing still. As we are waiting for them, if we could go ahead and rename ourselves again, like we did yesterday with our what we like to be called, and then the city. That always helps me kind of place people and remember. So yes, if anyone has any problems or with that, just let us know, we can help. Okay, great.
Also, did Sarah send you a note? She is not going to be on this morning. She has 2 other meetings that she's going to have to do. So she
Oh, bummer.
back to the recard. She's not going to be able to join us, I think, this morning. She said she might try to pop in, but we're in the middle of a couple big projects and she's got to meet with a couple people on it. So I will be representing PCLA today. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Judy. I didn't actually know that. So
I don't know if she's going to try to pop in, but
Mhm.
well, I didn't want you to wait for her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think Edna's not able to come today, unfortunately. And yes, we have a few latecomers coming on. Yeah, I don't see Lauren yet. Dave, you didn't hear anything from Lauren, did you? No.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a lot of fun things to talk about today. Looking forward to being with you again. Let's see here. I think most everyone, yes, everyone on here has, oh, I think it's actually Debbie. So Debbie, I don't know if you were able to do the in-sync agreement. Yeah. I think you, yeah. Yes. So that would be
Shannon and Santa Fe, how did we do? Did we wear you out? Did you go home and drink or sleep?
last night. I actually went over to a friend's house and had some dinner and a little bit of wine. So I had my French press full of coffee already today, and I've now graduated onto my Tulsi with ginger tea. So I got to take it down a couple notches. The caffeine intake is always a fluctuating situation. Yeah, hopefully everybody had their Wheaties this morning ready for 3 hours of excitement. So just a little reminder to have your printed materials. They come more into play today. Lots of small print that you won't be able to see on the screen very well. And there's just some deeper detailed descriptions of some of the things we're going to be going over. So sometimes that's nicer to have in your hand, and being able to move the source, the print. Hi, Lauren, glad to see you. And yeah, go ahead and get your water, your coffee, whatever you need, just to stay hydrated as we move through today. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we can get going. All righty. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing my presentation there. So welcome back, Friday morning. And yes, just a quick little reminder of those fun collaboration agreements to mute your mic, but please unmute and let us know when you have something to say, to listen deeply to one another and building on others' ideas by saying, yes, I hear you, and moving with intention because these hours fly by, and then being patient with technology. S'il vous plaît. So I would like to get us started today with a little check-in exercise. So, it's a brief but potentially powerful exercise that we're going to do that you can also utilize within your own groups. It's a way to have everybody contribute and participate right off the bat. It gets people to be intentionally present in the here and now and like in the shared space, similar to what we did with mirroring, but just in a different way. So this is going to be a gratitude exercise. I don't know if anyone here is, incorporating gratitude practice into their lives on a regular basis, but it is just, wonderful and, scientifically proven really to help people's quality of life, really changing neural pathways into positivity. And just, once you start gratitude practice, you're really just looking for things throughout your day to be grateful for, and it just changes perspective. So what I would like to do is a chat storm. So we're going to use our chat function, and I would like you to share one thing that you are grateful for today. And it can be something really small. It can be, the fact that I have this beautiful orange candle lit on my desk, and it has a beautiful scent, and it's just, brightening my day. Or it can be something really big, that you might be experiencing in your life. So I would just love for us to share, A, and B, read what other people are experiencing, because then we get to have that shared experience, and it just helps keep building us up. So I need to open my chat function and see. All right. So Rachel is grateful for the cool air, which is rare in Phoenix. Wildlife. Ooh, volunteering. Oh, that's great. That must be super fulfilling, Lorenzo. Let's see. All right. Yes. So Nancy's husband, caregiver. Wonderful. Yes. Family. I'm grateful for my friends who are so supportive of me at this time. The leak in your roof from Wednesday's rains didn't do more damage. Oh my gosh. So that's a positive spin on something that's not so fun. Wow. Yes. Anybody else want to contribute to our chat storm? And just think about this in a support group context. So if we were in person, we could be in a circle. We could go one by one around the circle and hear just one thing from each person, something that they're very grateful for, and then everyone's going to feel better at the end of that. You could do a popcorn, great gratitude on Zoom. That's really fun. Let's see. Andrew, thank you for that. Yes, I'm happy you are here. Let's see. Higgins is grateful for patient people who surround him. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully that was uplifting for you. It was for me, and it's something so simple, but can be really just very easily incorporated into a support group meeting. Okay. All right, let us start with just a little bit of a recap of what we did yesterday. We talked about the new normal. What does that mean? Different ways to express that sentiment. We talked about the fear learning growth model as a way to frame a process of moving forward for greater wellness. We talked about what do we miss about pre-COVID life? What do we want to keep from the things that we've learned during the pandemic? We did the above the line, below the line. And so today we are going to be diving deeper into a model from the National Wellness Institute, the multidimensional health model, which I really am excited to share with you. We're going to do another roundtable, which will explore that model in an interesting way. And we are going to talk about the importance of play. I'm not sure if you've explored that. Sometimes we really get away from that as we become adults and we grow up and all of that, but just really remembering the importance of play and how to bring that into our meetings to make them more dynamic and engaging. And what I do want to remember to do, and everyone here can help me remember, after our roundtable, we will take a little break. And as we come back, I want to address what David brought up yesterday. He asked about forming smaller, more specific kinds of support groups, such as women or YOPD, that sort of thing, and people's experience with that. So I just want to remember that that's what we want to address as soon as we come right back from our break. Okay. So starting off with a little cartoon here, I think this is really appropriate for, and it's like an analogy really, on the experience of someone living with Parkinson's. Does this ring true to anybody? The one size fits all store. So, we hear of Parkinson's as being like the snowflake disease. Every single person is so different and you can't make any assumptions really ever. And then it can also be compared to the application of wellness strategies. So each person is going to need something very unique and different according to just who they are. So a unique bundle of strategies and approaches and tactics to attain their own best version of themselves. So this is just how I want us to start thinking about wellness, what that means, and how we're going to be moving forward, and how we as support group leaders can help folks as they're on this journey. Okay. So where do we go from here? So what does the path of wellness even look like? Like, where does it begin? So this little picture here shows the wide variety, the diversity that's present in our support groups. So many kinds of people. We have people living with a disease. We have care partners. We have people who are older in age, younger in age, different ethnic backgrounds, physical abilities, etc. So how could we ever expect that there would be one path of wellness that applies to everyone? So we need to really approach this with the idea that one size fits one. Yep, not one size fits all. And that personalization in wellness strategies is the key. Individualization, personalization, however you want to think about that. But that's how we really need to set up our way of thinking as we help people move in this model and on this pathway. So this is a little bit random, but I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you start to learn something new and something really resonates with you. And then you start to see that theme repeated in other places, and you start to say, oh, that's that again. And oh, things that really kind of strengthen and make you feel like you're onto something. So I saw this, I watched a webinar, or it was like a YouTube video rather, of this man here named Dan Buettner. Has anyone here, and just show me with your hand, have you heard of the blue zones? Anyone? This is a new concept. Okay. So it looks like Nancy may have heard it. So I just thought it's an interesting way to provide a little more context of what we're trying to achieve with the wellness strategy and helping people with that. So this is really looking at what does being healthy and happy really look like. So scientists through research have discovered major life lessons to be learned from the happiest, healthiest, longest living people in the world, right? So there are 5 locations that they have narrowed down to, and that's Loma Linda, California, random, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, and Okinawa, Japan. So that's on that little map that it's really hard to read because it's so tiny. So they have figured out, what are the secrets of these people and what does it all boil down to? So this is Dan right here, the primary researcher of this. So this is what his model that he came up with. And so I just wanted to look at that quickly. So here at the top, the most important piece is having purpose in life. Having a reason to be, and what are you contributing to the world? Healthy lifestyle is here, and that is evident here in eating wisely, right? Moving naturally, and then having a healthy environment, which it's hard to see in the white print here. So making sure you're not, ingesting lots of pollution or, things like that. So you want to have a healthy environment as well. What I want to underscore though, is this part right here, right tribe. Having the right people surrounding you. And so that is one of the primary wellness factors. And when you think about it, what are we doing in our support groups? We are basically creating a tribe. And so that is how important the work that we're doing is. It's one of the seminal factors of wellness for people. So again, just providing context and kind of supporting what we're doing when we're talking about wellness today. Okay, I'm just going to check the chat really quickly, make sure I'm not. Okay, so Judy, she does gratitude. Okay, thank you, Judy. Right on. Okay, so let's talk about wellness a little bit. What does wellness even mean? It's a little vague and lots of different definitions and approaches. So I have one definition for us to think about today. The Global Wellness Institute defines it as the active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. Okay, it's simple, it's short, but there's a lot packed into it, right? So some of these words here are indicative of what wellness is. So we need to recognize that wellness is not a passive or a static state, but it's an active pursuit. And there are intentions and choices and actions that people need to work toward for an optimal state of well-being. And then there's the aspect of the holistic aspect of health. So it's beyond physical health, and it incorporates all these different dimensions that exist in our lives that need to work in harmony, and there needs to be balance that's present. Okay. And then lastly, I just want to underscore the fact that wellness is really about an individual pursuit with a lot of self-responsibility and taking action, right? So with that, it becomes a little more complex when we have people living with a movement disorder, right? And so sometimes there are situations with care partners who are helping that person. And so think from the care partner perspective, how is it that you balance your own needs with the person with those of the person you love, right? So there's a lot of complexity here, especially as we're dealing with health issues and trying to create wellness in a household, right? And balancing that. Just want to point that out. So I'm a nerd and I just love to dive deeply into random subjects. So I was like, okay, wellness, where does it all begin? And so, when you think about it in the span of history, it can, depending on what lens you look through, it goes back 5,000 years. So wellness as an approach to life, Ayurvedic medicine in India that had, yoga and coming at it as a holistic approach to health. And then you think of Chinese medicine with Qigong and with acupuncture and all these different ways to try to create health and balance and harmony in the body. And then, yeah, so the Western ideas, maybe they came a little bit later, lots of things in ancient Greece, but then, yeah, like fast forward to the 1800s, to the early 1900s, and then wellness starts to become more of a concept. Instead of treating illness, it is how to be proactive in being healthier into the future, right? It's a different way of looking at health and wellness. So I'd like us to look at this little infographic here that was created by the Global Wellness Institute, which I really like. And so it's a way for us to understand wellness and considering health as like a continuum. So it goes from being, from illness on the total left-hand side here, being in poor health, to this side of the continuum, so an optimal state of well-being. So people who are ill or who have a health problem, sometimes they're coming from this perspective, the medical paradigm, which is, treating the illness. It's corrective, it's compartmentalized. And then as we move to the right side of this continuum, getting closer to the wellness side of things, being proactive and working on prevention and being more holistic, and trying to integrate and balance in our lives and thrive, actually. So instead of just feeling better, you're actually thriving. And so that is what I think is super important as we try to move forward in this really crazy time where we can't control what's happening in the world, but we can look inward, we can work on ourselves, we can work with the people around us to hopefully thrive in this time. That's all we can really try to do. So I just want us to think about that in terms of being support group leaders and trying to help our support group members. So that being said, I'm going to introduce this amazing model that I found in my research. It's so interesting. There are many models out there, and this is a 6-dimension version. Other models have between 5 dimensions all the way up to 9. So it can get a little bit more complex than even this one. I like this one because I think it covers all the bases and it doesn't get too in the weeds, parsing out, financial wellness, that can kind of fall under other umbrellas. And because the National Wellness Institute is such a wonderful resource, those printouts that you have in front of you, they're all offered for free. You do have to put your email in, and then they'll send you access to the PDFs of these things. But it's just so well constructed and well thought out. I'm like, we need to share this information and utilize it. And so why reinvent the wheel? And so we're gonna utilize this model today in helping us to think about support group meetings and resources for our members moving forward. So we're going to go through each one of these. Again, lots of words. We'll take it one by one and see what we have to think about this. So the occupational dimension of wellness. What does that mean? So that doesn't mean, full-time job. It can be many things. And that, I think, falls into the purpose. Remember that #1 top bubble in Dan Buettner's wellness or Blue Zone model, purpose, having purpose. So because we're all here, we're all involved in support groups and leadership. And so this is definitely part of occupational, right? So it can be a paid job, it can be volunteer, full-time, part-time, it runs the gamut. And so it really has to do with is aligning your own internal purpose with the work that you choose to do in the world, the way that you happen to serve. It should feel inspirational, hopefully, and feel like a really great fit to you. So it's not that you, feel so obligated and above the line, below the line, that this work is down at the bottom and it's draining every last, bit of energy from you. So how can we realign ourselves to be contributing to our communities in a way that is energizing and fulfilling? So this is, again, it's always so meta when we have our in-sync workshops like this. So these are things that you can do as individuals and human beings, but you can also bring this information to your support group members and have them start working through some of these things. So just to kind of keep that in mind. Let's see. Yes, David.
So this may not be the time for this conversation, but this is actually just in my life has become a major focus for actually not just people in our support groups, but my father is 86, experiencing cognitive decline, significant decline. And he's someone who was always, work, hobbies, activity. And he's completely lost the ability to do that and find things that actually are purposeful for him. And he talks about it. But it's an interesting challenge. And I hear this from support group members as well, that the challenge as a care partner of being with a partner who is losing that, who has lost that ability to have purpose. It's really challenging. Again, maybe this is not the time for that conversation, but
No, it's a perfect time to talk about that. And it sounds to me too, like purpose is so intertwined with identity and the things that created, who are you as a human? What do you love? And then these things are maybe slowly taken away from you over time. Like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Now I can't do that anymore. And then how do you fill that back in and still feel like you are living fully?
Right. And I think so much of our attention as caregivers, maybe not so much partners, but is on obvious physical things and just physical needs, medical needs, things like that. But we sort of miss out on the important.
Looks like you're muted again. Yeah, we just lost the last word.
Sorry, I lost you. The purposeful aspect of their lives.
Yes. Yeah, right. It's kind of like, what's the immediate need? What's the fire we have to put out right now? And that a lot of times it's just like, how, can you walk? Can you, whatever those daily, the ADLs, just being able to function. And so these, what I think of as like the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the things that are at the bottom need to be taken care of first, and then you're moving up into the things that help to fulfill us. And so, yes, this is an important conversation to have. And that's exactly why we are bringing this into the picture.
Shannon, can I add a little twist to that?
Sure.
Not changing anything except just maybe making it a little more detailed. As a person who's going through scaling down my life, whatever you want to call it, what seems to be the case is that early on, the person that you're helping or talking about has control over, okay, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm not going to help them anymore. I'm not going to do that. Makes all these decisions for themselves, and then sort of transitions into a role where they're made for them. And I think it's that transition that's the issue, not enough to do.
I see. Yes. I've talked about this with Rachel before, that I'm not going to probably come up with the right word, but it's having the self responsibility starts to move outside of you. There's a word for it. I'm just not coming up with it at the moment. But very important to bring up. Thank you. And I see Andrew has raised his hand.
And then Nancy raised her hand also, so Nancy could be after.
Okay.
Yes, I have a brother who's in the VA living center up in San Francisco, and he had a stroke, and he's lost his memories. Okay. He just lays in bed all the time. Okay, because he has a little physical problem with his back, and I can see his life kind of diminishing slowly, bit by bit. And in some ways, it's very hard to help them other than just be there. Okay, that if they know your presence, then I'm thinking that's helpful. Okay, but I guess in the reality of it all is that sometimes things happen and there's going to be an end, and so you as a care partner or loved one, has to let go too. It's just it's a very hard thing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, knowing what you can do and things you can't control. It's like the whole serenity prayer thing, right? Very profound. Yeah. Thanks for expressing that. Nancy.
As you started to introduce this page, I thought I was kind of visualizing myself with the group, and I thought I might end up putting occupational at the bottom and not starting with, no, I don't mean for us now, but I mean for the group. I think for many people, they're like, wait a minute, I've just had to leave my job, and I don't want more responsibility. I don't want more added onto me. And so I think we just have to look at that word and say, okay, but what does that mean in terms of your life as a person, living with Parkinson's, and how do you do that well? And do you feel the need to, and I think purpose comes out. That's what speaks to me. It's what's your purpose?
Yes.
Maybe not necessarily, because I can see somebody going occupational, but wait a minute, or I just lost my job because of my Parkinson's. And I think Andrew's point is well taken, and David's too, in terms of talking about, hey, turning over some of that decision making. My husband at heart is an artist, and early on in his diagnosis, as he began to lose movement physically, it expressed itself in his art. His art became extremely fluid. It was really interesting to see it happen. Then as it became more difficult, we actually experimented with paint boxing. And I have video footage of him. We got some used boxing gloves and big Home Depot buckets, and we put paint in them, and then put a big, huge piece of plywood hanging vertically from an open garage door, put his wheelchair, and it didn't come down so far that he couldn't get under it with his wheelchair. So he's right there. We had the music, some jazzy music or something blaring, and he's boxing because his fine motor was beginning to dissipate, was not there anymore. John is not where Andrew's brother is, but he's now at a different place where, because of the myoclonus in his hands and arms, he can't even do that. And we've continued. I mean, we've introduced paper and, crayon paints and whatnot, but he's moved on. And in some ways I have to say, well, I'm fortunate that I get to see yet another stage that we might not visualize or think about in someone's life. And Andrew hit it on the head when he said, being there. What John, in January of this year, I was giving John some supplements, and he turned away and he went, no. And I'm like, hey, babe, we don't have to do this. This was a choice that, that you made, but we sure don't have to do that. And I said, help me understand what's going on. And he went, friends. And John was somebody who was always there for other people. Even after his diagnosis, I discovered that he'd climbed some treacherous stairs to visit a former partner who was dying of brain cancer. And I'm like, oh my God, John, you're lucky you didn't go down the stairs backwards. But what happens is people, and even if you are in a support group, maybe you move to a residential community, maybe you're now on the memory care, and you slowly begin to drift off from that whole. And so I said, well, let's do Zoom meetings. We can do Zoom meetings with friends. We'll initiate it. But shortly after that, we had a Zoom meeting with his sister, and he was asleep for the whole thing. And my daughter, who works as a speech pathologist, said, Mom, she said, why don't you just ask people to send videos? Just a little snippet on their phone. And so we've done that and made a file on his computer. And with all due respect to him, he might not remember that it was one that I played 3 or 4 weeks ago. But how great is that? Oh, look at here's Susan or Bob or whoever. By the same token, it was very interesting. I called his best friend, who's kind of dropped out of the picture, on his 80th birthday. Just my taking that moment to do that, suddenly his wife, she's been calling me regularly now. And he said, hey, how about if I bring tacos over? I said, great. And so I think, coming back to what Andrew said, I think people don't know what to do when a person gets to the point where Andrew is describing his brother as being, and yet just the act of being there. You may not have to say anything. You may not be able to say anything. I mean, emotionally, you may not be able to, and perhaps there isn't and it's not necessary.
Right.
So sorry, I kind of drifted off there for a moment, but I could, based on what David was saying, and then Andrew and where John is. But I think, coming back, I flashed on, gosh, if you had a monthly group, it might be interesting to take each of these topics and travel through it. It's just that I think maybe I would reword occupational.
Yes.
So just as a thought.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Done. I'm sorry, I got a little rambly there. I apologize.
No, totally fine. And that actually, this interaction helps me reframe for the next one. So I'm going to move that, or maybe just retitle it. But that helps me, because
Purpose is important.
Yeah.
It really is important. And I think often in our professional occupation, aren't we, if we're true to ourselves, hopefully following our purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
sometimes we get
paid
off
for it.
path a little bit,
Right,
yeah,
right.
and we get brought back, hopefully, or maybe the volunteer work fulfills something different, whatever it has to be for each person, but just being aware of it and checking in with yourself. So thank you for all of that. And just what I hear from you is how creative you have been through time and making those adjustments, and really seeing John for who he is and what he needs right now. And that's what we need to do for the support group members too, and help with that creativity. Because some people are like, I don't know what to do. Andrew's like, I'll just be next to you.
Mhm.
We don't know. And that's the journey. And that's for all of us to not shy away from, even though it's scary and hard, Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for that. Let me take a look at the time. I think, did I see Rachel, did you want to say something, or shall we move forward?
I think we can move forward. I was just going to comment on some of the other workshops that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
People have taken the occupational part of the wheel and have sort of discussed it in terms of almost like occupational therapy, like like your daily living activities. And so I think it kind of can meld into the physical, which is what you're going to talk about next. But just like another way to think of occupational in what we do every day, making sure we're living our best lives and able to do the things that we have been independent doing and continue to do, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Just a different take on occupational.
Thanks for that reminder. Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes when you're dealing with a movement disorder, that's part of your work. Is exercise is part of your work. Right? You got to do it. You got to fit it in. You got to make it a priority, and hopefully it can be enjoyable at the same time. That's the goal.
It's under reactions.
Hi there. David, would you like to?
Just a quick comment. I in some ways, I'm not totally unique, but I'm unique in this group, for example, in that I have Parkinson's disease and I am a support group leader. So that gives me an insight that not everybody has, but I also feel isolated. That I don't really belong to either group.
Mm. Wow.
Hmm.
We have others who are living with movement disorders here. So I don't know if anyone wants to, do you have anything to say to respond with Lauren or Garija? Yeah, Lauren first and then Garija.
Yeah,
No, just that
Oh.
you're part of the group. I mean, you're not alone in that. I'm also have Parkinson's and a support group leader. And I think sometimes you kind of walk that line, and I have been in situations where it's really different to be in a group of professionals who are leading Parkinson's groups, so there be support groups or other groups, and they're talking about them, and I'm one of them, those people that have Parkinson's, and it's a weird place to be at, but you're not alone in it.
Thank you, Lauren. I just want to acknowledge that sometimes it's hard for me to know how to frame or how to word things sometimes, because we do have a mixed group here, and it's not like, and I don't want to call out like, oh, you care partners do this, and then, oh, you people who have the movement disorder do that. And it's always just have to be humble about it. And I'm just saying it out loud. So thanks for that reminder.
Garisha?
Let's hear from Garisha first and then Nancy.
As the disease progressed and I had to give up my career, and so along with that, my identity also changed for me, at least in my own brain. I'm no longer this, that, or this. And so I had to change constantly and redefine my purpose in life. And that's how I became a patient advocate, because I needed an identity to go on with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can't do this, what do I do next?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm still in the process of defining myself.
Right. Always, right? A lot of strength there. And what better purpose could you serve than helping other people, in similar shoes? So
Yeah, but there comes a time I won't be able to do even this.
Yeah.
That's
right.
my next question.
Ooh. Yes. I hear you. Thank you. Nancy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, listening to Garija, the words that came to mind were post-traumatic growth, but that's kind of a topic for another time. What I have found is when I'm interacting in a support group, I'm making it we, and I sometimes think, Nancy, wait a minute, you don't have Parkinson's. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't really, it's we.
Mm-hmm.
When we experience, urinary incontinence, and I was aware as I started to transition into it, but then I felt like I can't keep separating myself. No, I'm not, I do not have it. And I don't pretend to, but I live it day in, day out. And I found if I said you, it put a separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally thought, quit fighting it. Just, you are part of this group. You swim with them, you live with, you're part of the school of fish that hang together, and why focus on a difference? It's we. And yes, I may be the one advocating in the moment for them, but it's us, it's we. And so I don't see us as separate, I guess, is for lack of a better description. And I can certainly understand Lauren's, and you're sitting there listening to somebody and they're talking about you in the third person, like you're not,
right,
not even there. But so that's what I found myself doing. And maybe someone at some point will convince me I need to do something different. But right now, if we're talking about something, it's us, it's we.
Mm-hmm. So. I love that. And you are living it every day. Whew, wow, really good stuff. Hard stuff, but good stuff. Thank you.
Sorry, but I want to say one more thing. I apologize, but I've been thinking a lot about, my role should I outlive John. And the first thing that struck me was, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose the opportunity to learn. He's had such an unusual journey that's afforded us an awful lot of experiences wrapped into one life with regards to Parkinson's. And I was kind of bummed about that. I was like, separate from, him passing before me, I'm like, oh God, how am I going to continue in my role? Because my role is fed by what I learned from him. And then I stopped and I went, wait a minute, Nancy, it is we. I can continue to learn from all the people in my life who are living with it if I'll avail myself of that. So that's been a kind of an aha recently, because I honestly was really bummed. I thought, oh my gosh, this is not going to be good, because I'll immediately there'll be attrition in terms of what I know. And 5 years out, can I really help people if I'm that far behind in what's happening? So now I'm rethinking that. And again, coming back to that, it's we, and I can continue to learn from the people that I'm with.
Sure. Wow. How generous of you to think in those terms and continuing to help into the future. So thank you for saying that. I think I saw Judy first, and then we'll go to Debbie.
Thank you. Interesting conversations. I've been listening to it as I've been watching all these elementary school children do their parade. It's now over, so I got to see my granddaughter. Thank you very much. It's an interesting conversation. What you're saying, Nancy, is very true. After Sandy passed, I had a couple people say to me that were sort of more acquaintance friends. They'd say, well, I guess you're just not going to do your Parkinson stuff anymore. You must be so relieved to not have to do it. And I was a little bit taken back, because to me, I started this organization. We started it together, and I couldn't imagine not being part of it. And the fact that on sort of Sandy's deathbed, if you want to look at it that way, but really when he was a couple days before he passed, he looked at me and he said, "You're going to keep my support groups, aren't you?" And I said, "Of course." I said, "They're my support groups too." After spending last year doing them for not 8 months, 9 months, I said, they have become my friends. And the reality is, you get immersed into this community of people that are smart and interesting and active and positive and are able to help each other. And I don't see this separation so much, and I agree with you that it's not the caregiver and the patient. It is very much all of us together. And now I don't have someone with Parkinson's that I am taking care of, but I am entwined into this group of people that I love. And I can't imagine when I can't make my Tuesday group. I feel, if I had to go away or something, I just can't imagine not being involved with them. And I think that changes. There was a gift that came. Really, my gratitude, and I have said this in my group, my gratitude is that Sandy did get Parkinson's, and I did learn even more about compassion and understanding and patience and all those things that come with this. And I know that he felt the same way that David, and I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher saying your name again, Guriha.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I know I'm going to say it incorrectly, but that feeling of being someone who leads a group, who is part of it. And I think also, Dave, you're another one that leads a group, and you have PD. That I think there's something there that you bring to the table oftentimes that I cannot bring to the table. And that is that reality of being in it. and facing it every day. And you know, Sandy was kind of a quiet person. I was the one that had the big mouth and always talked and was very outgoing. He was quiet, but if you put him in that support group, he was right there, and he was so involved and so animated. And up until 4 days before he died, he came to the support group in his wheelchair, barely able to speak, but it was part of his experience. And I think that's what we get from this. And when you say occupational, I think it's everyone in my group has that occupational mentality. I think that they learn to get that. Even the people that are newly diagnosed, that are in tremendous fear of what's going to happen to them. I think that this idea of being involved is so important.
Wow, I'm just blown away by what you've said. Just Lord. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, it's a lot. Thank you so much. Let's hear from Debbie.
I'm in agreement with Judy on this one. My husband will be gone almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in February. And Parkinson's has not left me or my family. We still totally, are into it. And, I do have a few children who feel that I should move on, but I've always felt in giving back, whether it be through PTA or any other organization. And I agree, it's still part of my life, even though it's not on an everyday. And, yet talking with Joe yesterday, Rudman, certain things I'm not as up to date on in medications and stuff like that. But I love my group. I wouldn't trade it for a day. Maybe sometimes when I get one too many phone calls, yes, but they're everything to me. I mean, that is my life. And I lived it for 20 plus years, and I have no regrets, of what I do now and going forward. And I think Judy said it correctly. It becomes your life. It is your life. And Nancy says it too. It's not going to disappear one day. It stays with you.
Yes. And I think you all are special too, in that not everyone makes that choice. From what I've heard, some people maybe don't have the capacity. And so you're special to stay and to care and to keep going and push forward, keep learning. So just want to say that. Yes, Judy.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say one quick thing. I think it's important for us to respect those people that are not able to do it. I've been in many caregiver support groups over the years, and even within my support group of caregivers that come in that are not able, they don't have that capacity to do it. Everyone, their grieving process of losing the person that they knew that was vibrant and young and had all these qualities that were of strength, they may not be able to handle that. And we still have to honor those people and make sure that they know that it's okay for them to not have to be that ultimate caregiver, the perfect caregiver, whatever that means, that they are able to allow someone else to do that for them. And that it's okay to have, I think in caregiver groups, to me, that's the one thing when we get in there and I can say, when I say to a group, there were times when he fell that I didn't want to really pick him up. I wanted to kick him in the side and say, where was your goddamn walker? Yeah. And it allows people to feel free to be able to say, oh, I can have those kinds of real feelings, because you can't have feelings of being perfect all the time. But we really have to honor those people that don't have the capacity or that choose not to. And it is a very conscious choice. I think we have to be respectful of that.
Yes. So, great point. Thank you. David, did you want to say something? I think you're muted still. There you are.
Yeah. Maybe I'm not going to talk about this for a long time, and I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll just put a slight twist on this to stimulate conversation, because I really appreciate hearing everyone's perspective on this, which is really great. as a person with Parkinson's and a support group leader, sometimes there's a conflict in what I view my role as, not what the role is. I'm not saying that my definition is the definition, but how I view it. And the one place I've gotten into trouble, so to speak, is people in my group don't feel like they know enough about me. They want me to come and sit in their chair and tell my life story. And that's different than my style or the approach that I've taken, which is to be more neutral and more out of it, more above it, and more just facilitating, which I've certainly done in non-Parkinson's groups. But Dave and I have been at this now for 10 years, and we've developed our own style. And some people don't like it. For me not to be telling them everything that's wrong with me and what my symptoms are and that kind of stuff. And so I'm struggling a little bit with that, to be honest. And I won't say anymore. I'll just put that on the table.
Okay. Yes. That's good to hear. And I'm sure, it's like there has to be a little bit of that space or distance if you're a leader in some regards, so I can imagine, maybe I can't imagine what it's like. But thanks for making that point, David. And we have 5 more dimensions to blow through really fast in the next few minutes. I don't see any of our guests, our partner reps who've showed up yet. So that's good, shown up. Let us move to physical so that we're going to be doing our breakout sessions on these dimensions. So we actually need to cover what we're going to be talking about. So, okay, physical, this one's a little bit more straightforward. Maintaining a healthy diet. We know with Parkinson's and, just being healthy human beings, diet is important. Regular exercise, we know how that is super important for us. Seeking proper medical care, and then seeing the whole spectrum of what's available holistically. So looking into alternative therapies, yoga or acupuncture, whatever that might be for you and what feels right. But just thinking of all the different ways that we can approach the physical aspect of health. And so again, I'm just gonna kind of plant a seed here as we move through the rest of these. When you're in your groups, each of your groups is going to be designated one dimension. Okay, and so I would love you to start thinking about what topics, like discussion topics, what kinds of speakers, what kinds of resources, webinars, what can you bring into the fold to support each of these different dimensions? And then we can talk more specifically on how to employ this model within your support group meetings. But just as I continue through this quickly, I see we have a couple of our guests who've shown up, Farzine and Miriam. Hi, nice to have you here. We're running a tad over because we had some amazing, important conversation that's happened. So we're just kind of blowing through the rest of this slide, and then we're gonna get into our roundtable in just a few minutes. So let's move into social, and you'll start to see that a lot of these dimensions really overlap. So there's going to be, just interplay, things where we can cross over with some of these topics. So social, contributing to community, that could be kind of related to purpose or to occupational, enhancing your personal relationships. So we can all be better at that, right? And that takes work, hard work to do that. And it has to be very intentional, right? Initiating better communication with those people we love, with our group members, with strangers on the street. How do we be our best selves and in the world? And then preserving our natural environment. Sounds a little random, but yes, our social structure, our community, we have to live in a healthy environment, just like Dan Buettner said, the blue zones thing. So we need to have a healthy community to live in. So being part of that, whatever that means to you. Moving to intellectual. And so that includes expanding knowledge and skills, sharing your gifts with other people, pursuing personal interests and new endeavors, challenging yourself, learning a new hobby, keep that gray matter going and learning and new neural pathways. So think about the different ways we can expand ourselves and feel like, and maybe that's part of the purpose. Like maybe we can't do some of the hobbies that we have done in the past because it's time to think of something new, learn something new in a different way that you are able to accomplish in your current place in time. Spiritual. So this one is an interesting one. So it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It doesn't have to be religion, of course, but in general, big picture, developing an appreciation for life. What does that mean to you? Searching for meaning and purpose on a deeper level. Aligning your actions, the way you behave in the world with your values, making sure there's not that dissonance that's happening. So really taking stock and then attaining a greater world view. Not just thinking about, and that can happen to a lot of us, especially when we're in difficult positions, that we shrink and it just is like, it's all about me or about, my immediate whatever. And it's like, remember, even when we're in pain, bringing it out and remembering, the larger picture. So if that's a little vague, but I think we can riff on that when we go into our breakout rooms. Emotional. So developing greater self-awareness, again, lots of work in that one. Ability to manage your feelings and stress. So yes, if you're having a bad day, how do you manage that and not let it spill out onto everybody else, right? Maintaining satisfying relationships in all areas of your life. And then balancing that independence versus connection, knowing when you need support, knowing when you need to be self-reliant and yeah, it's a constant flow that we have to navigate on that. So I just really blew through those last few dimensions, but hopefully we're getting a sense of where we're headed for our breakout session. So it looks like we have, okay, great. So Pat, I don't know if you're able to turn your video on. We've got Farzine and Miriam and Thurman. Okay, good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us today and for our roundtable. We're just sort of quickly wrapping up the content of the beginning part of our session today, and we'll be able to get into our roundtable discussion. Perfect. So let me gather my thoughts for a moment. I am going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other better. Okay. So, okay, looks like Pat might need to sign off. Okay. No problemo. Maybe Pat can join us in a bit, but so okay. Hi to our guests. Welcome to the roundtable portion of this session today with our support group leaders from Southern California, and they span from LA area down to San Diego and everywhere in between. So what we're going to do is hear from each of you as our guests. We'd love to hear a little bit about, well, your company, what medication or device you're representing, and in just a couple of sentences so we can get to know who you are. We're going to be going into breakout rooms later, which you will be participating in. So thank you for being game for that. And just so you know what to expect for our guests, I'm going to be providing your contact information to the support group leaders following the workshop so that they can be in contact with you about getting resources and about having you do presentations, whether it be through Zoom or in person. And so that's how that communication is going to go. So why don't we go ahead and start off with Farzine, and then we'll hear from Thurman because they work together. So hi there, nice to see you.
Thanks, Shannon. Great to see you. Hi, everyone. Great to see all of you. I see some familiar faces. I'm Farzine Daneshnia with Accorda Therapeutics. I'm Director of Market Development and really honored to be here with all of you. Our product for Parkinson's is called Embresia. I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. It's for off periods in people with Parkinson's. And our goal is really to help empower people with Parkinson's to live their best life. So that's why I'm here.
Thanks so much, Farzine. Nice to see you. Thurman, are you able to unmute? Looks like he froze. Good timing there.
I know Thurman's actually at the airport. So.
Oh, he is.
But I should be on. Can you guys hear me or no?
We can now, yes.
About now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm masked up, but I just echo Farzine's thoughts, and I know we have worked in the Southern California area with PMD Alliance and with the Parkinson's Association of San Diego also, and other groups down there. So we are definitely willing and ready to help. I can and I will give my information to Shannon. She probably already has it. But if there's anything that we can do from an Accorda standpoint to further educate, further empower people with Parkinson's and caregivers for that matter, we look forward to those opportunities. And please ask for those if they arise in your local geography. So with that said, I'll pass it back to Shannon.
Thank you, Thurman. And let me ask you this, Thurman. I know if you're at the airport, are you able to participate very well in the roundtable discussion, or do you want to be put in the same breakout room as Farzine? How would you like that to be handled?
That probably would be good. I probably have a hard stop around 10:35, 10:40.
Okay. So maybe we can put them together. Kelly's going to be doing the breakout room magic. So perfect. Good to know. Thank you. All right.
You're
nice
welcome.
to see you both.
That.
That's okay. Glad to see you. Miriam, would you like to unmute yourself and say hi?
Hi, everybody. My name is Miriam Marker. I'm the Regional Sales Director for Medtronic, and I live in Denver, Colorado, but my area is all the way from Colorado to Hawaii. And I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. This is such an amazing, great group. The device that we have is deep brain stimulation. And I really love that because we are the pioneers of this particular area. And what I love, it's really given back some people the quality of life that you expect and deserve. And so, you know, for me and the team that I get to work with, we are honored to be in your lives, and we strive every day to come up with new and exciting technology to make this a better place for you. An example of that is brain sensing, which will always sense what your brain is doing and give you the therapy that you need. And that to me is really revolutionizing, only because we've come such a very long way in a very short period of time. And I know I probably look like a child prodigy to all of you. And if not, I'm hoping I will. But from that perspective, I just want to say we're still very committed. We're still making a lot of advances, things I can't share with you today, but every 6 months is going to be really transformational for everyone that we get to touch, not only for Parkinson's, but for essential tremor, severe OCD, and then dystonia for children. So I just want to say thank you for having me. Looking forward to continuing this participation, and I don't know what else to say except for yay, it's Friday.
Thank you, Miriam. Appreciate that. Okay. Hi, Renetta. Nice to see you. Would you like to unmute and just introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Renata Mosley with Acadia, and I am the Patient Advocacy and Industry Relations Liaison for San Diego, LA area. So really glad to be here. Acadia, of course, remains committed to the Parkinson's community. We have a medication that helps fight the hallucinations and delusions that comes along with Parkinson's. My role really is to help elevate and bring awareness to those symptoms so that persons living with Parkinson's and their care partners don't feel alone or isolated, or don't understand that this could be a part of the Parkinson's journey. So my role is really to help educate care partners, case managers, nurses, those who may not be aware, so that the discussion doesn't seem odd, judgmental, but it's one that you can have and discuss together and find a solution. So glad to be on the call today. Thank you for welcoming me and Acadia to be present, and I look forward to the discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Renata. Good to have you again. Okay, so I just saw your message, Kelly. Thank you. I'm going to share one more slide with all of us before we jump into our breakout sessions, or a couple of slides, I should say, but it'll help us put things into context as we have our discussions in there. So let me share my screen again. Oop. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. So applying wellness to support groups. So as we go into this, and we're broken into groups according to dimension on this wellness wheel, there are these three important questions that we should be asking. So how can our support group help people live their lives more fully, right? Can we better recognize and address the whole person by focusing on all 6 dimensions of wellness? Can we help our members to affirm and activate their positive qualities and strengths while supporting their ever-changing needs? Right? So this is going to inform the ways in which we are bringing them education, information, resources, sharing amongst each other, so that they can start thinking of themselves in this holistic way to help balance everything out. And then this last bullet here, just emphasizing the interconnectedness of all of those dimensions. You'll continue to see all this crossover that's happening, and how everything really does contribute to overall health and well-being. Okay, so let me move to this slide. So this is going to be our question, and I'm going to find it in my notes here so I can paste it in the chat, which is how you're going to remember what to do. And let's see here. I am a terrible multitasker. There we go. So that's what we want to look at and think about. If you've ever facilitated breakout rooms before on Zoom, you do have the ability to create titles for the different rooms. And so that's what Kelly has been working on now. And remind me, Kelly, oh yeah, I think you need to say who's in what room and what their dimension is before we go get shot over through space into those rooms.
Yes, yes, I do.
Remember that, yes. And then it looks like Linda just joined, so we might have to add her separately if you don't want to redo the rooms again.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So do you want to go through those rooms? Are you ready?
I am ready. So we will go with, I'll give the names and then your dimensions that you'll be covering in your groups. So in the first room, we'll have Nancy, Lauren, Linda, and Renetta, and we'll have you do 2
occupational and physical dimensions. And then in group 3, we've got David and David, Grisia and Miriam, and we'll have you cover social. And then in room, or that was room 2. Did I say room 3? Yeah, that's room 2.
Okay.
And then in room 3, we have Andrew, Dave, and Lorenzo, and you will cover intellectual. And then in room 4, we have Debbie, Farzine, Judy, and Thurman, and we'll have you do a pair, spiritual and emotional.
The good stuff.
Sounds good.
I just also want to point out to the attendees here in your printed materials, you have a list of speaker topics and discussion topics that you can use as a reference. And you can, if you want to peruse those as maybe ideas of different topics and speakers that you could utilize within your dimension, please do so. And then the breakdowns, there are like greater detailed breakdowns of each of those dimensions if you need some help. Okay. I think that might be all the setup we need. I'm thinking we have about 16 minutes or so to do this brainstorming with your group. Again, I'll ask you to please have a volunteer leader to take notes and then share back with us once we get back to the main room. Any questions before we get zoomed over? All right. Well, it looks like we are good to go. Enjoy, have some nice conversations, and looking forward to hearing what you discuss on the other side. Hello, welcome back. How did it go?
We all made it. Have we all made it back? We've all been beamed back. All
yes.
Right.
I loved
David
my
Miles,
group.
Yes?
Loved my group.
Great.
Is David Miles still in the bathroom?
He's double timing us. He's got 2.
Okay, I see. Sorry to call you out. I apologize.
That's okay.
Hey, Shannon,
Yes, Dave.
one thing, I just want to point out something real quick. I know when you switched me into the breakout room, my speaker didn't stop working. And I switched speaker on my I changed speakers as using the speaker options. And when you came back, when I brought it back, I lost my speaker again, and I went back to my original one. It's really weird.
Speaker and not mic.
It said speaker because I couldn't hear anything. They could hear me, but I couldn't hear them. So I changed.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm glad that you understand your computer well enough to figure that out on the fly.
Yeah.
Good job. I would have been stunned. Okay. Well, we have a lot to go through with our, let's see, we've got our 4 groups. We had to smush together a couple of the dimensions. So let's go ahead and start with the first group. Let's see, there we go. Yes, first group was Lauren, Linda, Nancy, and Renetta, and they did 2 dimensions, occupational and physical. So let's hear what you had to say.
Okay, well, 2 dimensions is a lot to talk about in just that time. I think we could have talked for 3 times the amount of time that we had. But for the occupational, we again talked a little bit about changing that word occupation to purpose. Because in the Parkinson's world, I know for me being diagnosed, the occupation or the job went away pretty quickly, and I had to find a new purpose. So I think it's very difficult to get out of bed in the morning if you don't have a purpose. And so I think it's really important to help our support group members define what their purpose might be, whether it be Parkinson's related or not, but just something that gives them purpose, that gives them a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Because it's not always easy. So some of the speakers we talked about would be possibly having a counselor come in and talk about, ways to find that new purpose in your life and to change things, to kind of deal with that post-diagnosis thing and grow and move on from that. Someone like Jimmy Choi would be a great speaker for that. I mean, if you guys are familiar with him, he found a new purpose after his Parkinson's diagnosis, and he has inspired thousands of people, maybe millions, you know, being on TV. And encouraging people to do something out of the ordinary, you know, to someone who might be able to inspire them to try something new. And then on the physical side of it, we didn't talk quite as much about that. Possibly like rock steady people coming in to talk about their program, or a naturopath talking about health and wellness and diet and things like that. Also brain fitness, you know, comes under that physical thing. The brain fitness is so important. So maybe even someone who came in would talk about, Nancy had mentioned the Brain HQ app, someone who could come in and talk about that and how important it is to do things like that to keep your brain sharp. And pretty much a focus on learning to live well with Parkinson's. So not to have it be doom and gloom, but, you know, okay, we've got the diagnosis. How are we going to move forward from here and keep it positive?
Love that positive spin. Absolutely.
So if I missed anything, yell to my group.
Anything else from the other group members? Yeah, good. Lots of great ideas there. So yes, and I'm sure, like you said, with the limited amount of time, you know, even, yes, there's just so much more that we could bring into those dimensions to our group members. So this is just a starting off point. Hopefully it'll get your minds flowing after the fact. So thank you to that first group. Let us move to room number 2 that had the Davids, Garija, and Miriam, and they talked about the social dimension.
Miriam, do you want to, I've got notes, but I can chime in anytime you want, but you want to take the lead?
I will let you continue if you're great with that. We had a wonderfully robust conversation, so I would love to get your, get what you actually had to say and think, and then I'll add if you're good with that.
Sure. Garija, do you want to be the first one out the door? You're on mute.
You're muted.
You've got to unmute.
Then I will go ahead and start.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you could get on there. Teamwork. So.
Okay, so Garija, you want to start? Looks like you're unmuted now.
I didn't take notes, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
no problem.
Well, David, why don't you go, please? That way you won't be wasting time.
Sure. No. What struck me, I do have the notes, and what struck me about them is that the similarities especially between Garija and myself, we're both sort of long-term Parkinson's. She much longer and braver than I. We're both scientists, retired researchers, and we're both have become patient advocates in our retirement, if you will. We both spoke at length about our relationships our relationships at home with our spouse, and Garija talked about how her husband deals with her behaviors that frustrate him, and his coping mechanism, which is actually I found to be very positive. She may feel differently, but and for my part, the importance of communication, and that can be actually learned skills as much as practice and sort of practical it matters. So is there anything else glaring that I've missed? The issues around deciding how to adapt your life to your progressing disease, I think is a major topic. And the last point I'll add is the advice we were given by Miriam, which is very good advice, is try to get to a place where you are able to ask for help if you need it.
Well, I think you summarized that perfectly. And the one thing that we talked about, the social aspect of things, is every day is filled with challenges. There are always solutions. And so let's be creative. Let's be courageous. Let's ask for the help. You know, there are some beautifully great human beings out there that want to extend their hand. And let's have the courage to make sure that we can grab that hand so we can be pulled forward. And that's not a weakness. That is, you know, it's scary to be real and to be human and to say, I need help, et cetera. And we also talked about the social aspect and how it affects your partners or your significant others or the people that are in your life, and the solutions to come up with that, and, you know, how to be communicative. So I firmly believe that if we do all of those things, it just makes it better. It's just, we get in our own way, because I think David and Gidija both said that they preferred, we all want to be in control of our own life, and we have to kind of let go at this point and stage in our life, right? So you said it beautifully. And again, I was humbled to be in the room with both of you. So.
Thank you. Anything to add, Grisha, before I comment?
I think they summarized it very well.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
I wanted to bring something up that I heard Dave from yesterday speak about his Saturday morning cafe, and that is a Zoom meeting for the reps, the partners who have just joined us. So 7 to 10, usually people show up just on a Saturday morning. They talk about anything and everything, and just offering that as another way for social connection to group members. It's simple and effective, right? Things are different, of course, now with the pandemic, but perhaps meeting in small groups according to hobby or interest, you know, if you like to go to museums together, or if you like to do, a physical, like a game or a sport of some sort together, just to keep remembering to, offer these different interest groups as spin-offs. And so you as support group leaders don't necessarily have to be involved in all of it, but just to say, hey, don't forget that this is an option, that we can be with each other in different ways, in different capacities, and just to keep that social aspect in mind. And of course, it's tricky these days, but just to throw that in there. Let's see here. Why don't we move on to the third room, which was Andrew, Dave, and Lorenzo.
I drew the short straw there.
You did. Okay. So you all talked about the intellectual dimension.
Yeah, and we came to the realization that intellectual can be activated in many ways, many different forms, such as Lorenzo's learning about flora education, and learning about plants and landscape and desert landscapes, and learning about plants. And Andrew talked about using Brain HQ to exercise his brain. And then there's the opposite of what Lauren said about exercise, physical being mental. It just works the other way too. Like exercise is intellectual. And they're talking about like playing pickleball is the new rage now, and that takes some thought to understand the game and to have a new strategy. And just like other sports, it requires intellect to play the sport, to have strategy and just to understand the rules and so forth. Then there's intellectual stimulation, like through just these PMDA programs. They provide a lot of mental stimulation and intellectual thought. Personal interaction, you get a lot of intellectual thought through personal talking with other people, feeding on other people's ideas and building on their thoughts. And so group meetings, and whether group in a group or a personal one-on-one type thing, that's very intellectual. Lorenzo talked about something called Parkinson's life hacks, I believe it was, which are basically tips and tricks, which is something we do. I was saying that we do at the beginning of our support group sessions, every meeting. We do introductions, and then we have tips and tricks, and people love that. We spend about 5 to 10 minutes on it at most, And we just asked if anybody's got any new gadgets they found on Amazon or that kind of thing, or a new app they found, or some kind of tip, and one quick tip to help the people with Parkinson's in any way. And that is going to be very intellectual. You know, people have good ideas there, and that's about all I wrote down. Lorenzo or Andrew, if you have anything to add.
Just that we're going to try and add the tips and tricks as a regular agenda item for our Parkinson's support group. I thought that was a great idea.
That is a great idea, Dave. I really like that. We should start incorporating that into Flying Solo and some of the groups that PMD Alliance has, I think.
Yeah, I was saying it's a good icebreaker too, to a meeting. Good way to get started.
Absolutely. The local support group here in Santa Fe, Karen St. Clair is the name of the support group leader. She's great. And one time a month, she calls it a roundtable. And it's the very same thing, the tips and tricks. Everyone brings something to offer. And she always says this in her emails when letting people know that the support group meeting is coming up, and that the experts are in the room or in the Zoom room, you know, so you all are learning just as much from each other, if not more, than what we could learn from, you know, medical teams, or, you know, so it's so helpful to hear from someone else going through the same thing. Linda.
Just to share something we do in our support group, one of the fighters came up with, and now for something completely different, segment, and you can spend about 5 minutes or a little more on anything you want to talk about yourself. It could be your career, it could be about a trip, or it could be just something, you know, whatever, off topics. It's just something completely different from, it could be about PD, but usually it's not.
Usually it's not.
Or something in the past that, you know, you had you're a pilot or something. But one person came up with 2 truths and a lie, and he did that. So that was fun. But anyway, so it's just a lighthearted segment. So we try to get somebody to do it once a month.
That's so great. I love that. Thanks for bringing that up. And it reminds me that we will be providing you all after the fact. We'll send in the mail a little packet of, I don't know if you have those in front of you, Rachel. They're called meeting makers. So they're little cards. We have 12 of them, and 1 per month if you want to spread it out over the year. So each meeting maker has an icebreaker topic, and then like a meaty discussion topic, and then a closing. And so it's basically a support group meeting on a card. And we love the idea of learning more about Vanna White, of learning more about each other as human beings, and not only through the lens of the disease or the diagnosis, right? And so that's so great for connection, and just, you can be so shocked and surprised at people's lives and the things that you learn and the things you have in common with other people. So hopefully you will enjoy those meeting makers that will be sent out in the mail. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much to that group, intellectual group. We've got one more group. The spiritual/emotional. Sometimes this is the harder one to dig into. We have Debbie, Farzine, and Judy in this group.
Farzine, do you want to talk a little bit about it, or?
Sure, I'll start, and then Judy and Deb can fill in the blanks. We talked a lot about how everything is really connected. So it's great to talk about the different aspects, but it's also good to know that they're all connected. So improving in one of the areas can also actually spill over into the others and help improve those other areas. But we really talked about how some people are very connected and ready to go out and interact and see each other face to face. Others are not. So it varies, by individual, and that's fine. That's great. But a few of the activities we discussed for spiritual and emotional are, it's really based on the individual. So if people are willing and able to go out in person, we talked about spirituality not necessarily being related to religion. It could be, it could be related to nature. So getting out into nature and getting out into the fresh air. If the setting allows itself and is wheelchair and walker accessible, we talked about getting out and watching a sunset as a group, or some people just getting out and watching a sunset and getting out into nature, and that could be spiritual. We talked about, individually, not everyone wakes up this early, but you could wake up and watch the sunrise in the morning. You'd have to get up pretty early to do that. Not everyone is able to, but that could be a very spiritually fulfilling activity to do with a partner or on your own. We talked about other things that can really give you a boost emotionally, like seeing friends and seeing colleagues that you haven't seen in so long. And so we discussed pizza parties, anywhere from pizza parties to group meditations. So all those things could really help in boosting the spiritual and emotional. And we also talked about some support group meetings where we don't necessarily have to have a movement disorder specialist speaker. It can be really just, especially since for the last 2 years, everyone's been on these Zoom programs and Zoom events and watching presentations by speakers with slides, and it's caused a little bit of fatigue. And so changing things up a little bit, making it more free flowing and fun and interactive, and having everyone participate, just sort of like we're doing today, maybe follow through and have this sort of format or something similar with our own groups and our own support groups, and just keeping it fun and interactive and free flowing. So that was the other portion of it. Judy and Deb, I'm sure I missed several things, so I'll turn it over to you.
No, I think you covered it pretty well from my end. I think that it was really about just looking at I know from Deb's standpoint that when she started to do in person, that emotional well-being that her people wanted to see each other and be in person was so great. And I think, we have to look at a very holistic approach as we look at our people that we're dealing with in our support groups. Deb, do you have more to offer on that?
No, I think I covered it completely, both of you. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to emphasize, I think something that Farzine mentioned is that, yes, we've all been stuck at home and we've seen, many webinars probably at this point. So we're inundated with a lot of information and education at this point. So maybe our focus can head a little bit more in the direction of the social, emotional support, that kind of thing. If you remember the little poll that we took yesterday to start us off, like what is it that you would like to emphasize in your support group meetings into the near future? And we had some options: educational content, speakers, emotional support, or a combo of those things. How can we balance out? What are the needs of our people in the moment? What do we need to emphasize this week versus that week or month? And then having that balance. So Great. Yay. So Kelly and Rachel have been taking notes. Thank you for doing that. We'll provide those notes to the group after the workshop. Oh, yes, Dave.
Can I make a comment on this, follow up on something? I'm sorry, am I pronouncing your name right? Fardeen?
Garija?
Parija, I'm sorry.
No, I don't have any.
If you're looking for a good speaker for your meeting, the best place to start is in your own group. I mean, typically you have a lot of really interesting people in your own group that make good speakers and have a lot to share. And it might be something about their career or whatever, but that's usually one of the best places to find good speakers is your own members.
Great idea. Maybe like a spotlight that you could offer, once a month, depending on how many times you meet a month. But yeah, just asking your group members who would like to do a little talk, a little sharing of something from their lives, which is again a way to get to know them on a human level beyond the diagnosis, right? So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Dave. Great. All right, everyone. Nice roundtable. Thank you to our guests who joined us today and participated. Really appreciate it. Thurman, we can't see you, but I think maybe you're listening. Farzine, Miriam, Renetta, really appreciate your participation. And yeah, we're going to be.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to take a little break, I think, and then come back for the third part of our session. And just want to thank you again. We'll be providing your contact info to the leaders after the fact. So
thank you, Shannon.
So
thank
much.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Yes, you too. Happy Friday.
Bye, you too. Happy Halloween.
Much.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, so we're at about 2 minutes after. Why don't we take about 8 minutes today for our break? So we can come back at 10 after, do your bio break thing, get some water, and yes, move your bodies, please. I know I need to move. Okay, see you in a little bit. Okay, yes, Linda.
This is, I have to share this after Dave mentioned about, tapping your own people for speakers. I remember way in the beginning when we formed our support group, we have people in our group that's had over a decade of Parkinson's. So I approached one of them and said, will you give a talk to our group to let us know what we should, what you would tell us, what you would wish you knew 10 years ago. And surprisingly, they didn't only just give the talk, they got together and put together a PowerPoint and a booklet. And it was so good that the coach for Rocksteady asked them to give the talk to all the fighters. So Dave is correct that we can tap our own group for resources. Wow. It's pretty amazing.
I love that. A PowerPoint and a booklet. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking of having them updated because it's been 5 years now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Love that idea. That's something that we could all utilize. Yes, Judy.
We recently just did a layperson roundtable as part of a webinar, but we've been talking and we're getting ready to do another one just for caregivers. But I think that people really responded to that. They loved hearing from people from their own community. And I think it putting it into a support group or an event, having like a monthly event can be a very, very helpful thing to do. It could be really good.
Great idea. Lots of possibility for connection. Yeah, great. Okay, looks like most of us are back. So what I'd like to start off with, I promised that we would go back to David's question from yesterday regarding specific smaller groups that deal with, people with affinity groups, maybe like people let me see, YOPD, women. I can't remember your list from yesterday, David, but does anyone have any comment or advice, experience that you've had in creating these smaller groups? Yes, Judy, love to hear from you.
We've had a am I unmuted? Okay. We've had a YOPD group for years. In fact, that's how Sandy and I initially went into the YOPD group, although he was already in his early 60s when he was diagnosed. Linda O'Connor, who was the INR person at Cedar, said, oh, you should go to this group. And that's where we started. And it continues. Nessa and Mike Wyman are doing that group now. And it's still a pretty vibrant group, and it's very successful because their issues are clearly different. It's always, that group is in the evening because a lot of those people work. They still have jobs. And the discussion oftentimes is around what, what are the specifics if you are working? When do you tell your employer? All of those types of things. And we get younger and younger people in those groups. I just want to say we have a lot of people in their 30s that come to that group. It's just amazing to see that happening. But we are just starting a first time for us, a women's group, which is going to meet this Tuesday for the first time. And that came as a request from several of our support group people and members that said, would send me an email or to be talking with me and say, hey, have you ever considered doing something just for women? I'd really like to have that happen. So we were able to make that one come together, and I'm kind of excited about that as well. That group will be led by a social worker. We're actually paying a facilitator to do that group for us. So that I think it should be really interesting. One thing I just want to throw this out to you is that we are getting ready to do more of Spanish speaking. We do have a Spanish speaking group, which has been extremely successful. And I think hitting some of these target areas, it's not bad to look at some of the demographics that could be specific. Like we've been talking about in LB doing something very specific, and I don't know if anybody is doing that. David, you're shaking your head. I'd love to hear if you're doing something with that, because that's our next area that we want to go. We've established a diversity committee now, and we're really looking at how we can, as an organization, not only diverse our board and have diversity in our groups. We have diversity within the people that come to the groups, but can we really target certain areas that are underserved or have different ways of approaching this particular disease where there might be a stigma associated with it? So I'd love to hear from anyone that's got some info on that.
Wonderful. Thanks, Judy. Let's hear from David first, then Lauren, then Nancy.
I just wanted to make a distinction between the young onset groups that are absolutely critical and vital, and many of you have them going on. We've discovered in the process of working with those people that people want a newly diagnosed group. So not necessarily age related at all, but temporally where it falls into the onset of symptoms. A number of people have told me that are newly diagnosed. I talk to people all the time, and they don't want to come to meetings because they don't want to see people sick in wheelchairs, can't walk, can't talk, can't need breathing devices. And I said, that's not a newly diagnosed population, but I can understand why you might think that. So newly diagnosed is probably top of our list for that reason, and then just a bunch of other ones that you've already alluded to.
Thanks, David. Let's hear from Lauren.
Yeah, first off, I totally agree with the newly diagnosed group, David. I hear the same thing. People don't want to go into a group and see someone in a wheelchair and they get scared and nervous, but also they want to know the basics. And people who've been living with Parkinson's for a really long time, they know the basics. So definitely that's one area. I'm also with the Twitchy Woman group, which is all women that meet on Sunday mornings with Sharon Critcher. And I got to tell you, what a fun group of women. But we have a lot of topics that guys just would not be interested in. Hormones and menopause and just things like that. But we also have we talk about a lot of topics that are not Parkinson's related. And we get guys that want to join us sometimes. And Sharon has offered to, help if there's someone that wants to start a men's group like that, that she will help them, but we have yet to come up with someone that will actually run the group. So I think there's a desire for a men's group, but I don't know if one's happening yet. Here in Orange County, we also have a Korean Parkinson's group, so Korean Americans group, and I just heard they're starting Korean tremble clefs, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and it's going to be virtual. So if you know anyone's Korean speaking with Parkinson's, there's going to be a group happening. So
great to know. Thank you, Lauren. Wow, lots of interesting things happening with these smaller groups and more specific needs, and how can we meet those needs, and the level of comfort that people feel with sharing when they're just like everybody else in the room. Yeah, great. Nancy.
Along those same lines, and Chris Boucher can probably speak to the Hispanic liaison and Hispanic group that has just started in San Diego, but specific to Central County. We ended up starting a duopa therapy support group because that treatment modality is so specific. And we had been running it was our monthly point loma group, and there were 3 participants who were on duopa and a group of 25 people. And something came up about one of the people. Suddenly the whole focus was strictly on duopa. And that was great for the 3 people on it and their care partners, but the other 20 some odd people, that wasn't their focus at that time. And so out of that grew a support group that now has people in Alabama, Hawaii. And so the Zoom, obviously has worked really well. That group will not go back to live. It will just stay virtual. That's a very topic specific kind of group. And now we're getting people participating who are thinking about it, wondering about it. Maybe that's a next step, or they want to hear about what's in the pipeline with regards to that. So that just evolved because, on the other hand, I've repeatedly asked one of our groups if they'd like to, break out. No, we want to all be together. So it's so varied. It's each group is like its own mini little country or sub community, and like the United States, which is so varied. Some let me know right away they never wanted to go back to live. No, we want to stay virtual, and we want to have topics. And others were no, we want an open discussion. And so it's really kind of a function of the milieu that you have immersed yourself into, and who ends up joining and who takes leadership and brings in concepts and ideas to run with.
That group identity as well.
Yeah. Oh,
How
huge.
It can
Huge.
change over time when people leave the group or join the group, and it'll just shift and morph, and as a leader, being able to stand back and see what the needs are, and pull
It's very organic.
Yes.
And I think for me, I have to really look at that. And it was, talking about the newly diagnosed, we have somebody who's just come in and newly diagnosed and said they were going to come to one group. And I thought, oof, boy, there are a lot of women in that. So I called one of the guys and I said, hey, would you mind I want to make sure that I've got at least a couple guys there that, this person could relate to. Well, then of course the friend shows up, but the newly diagnosed person doesn't. He comes on to a group that's topic specific and mostly women. But the one benefit of the Zoom is, and all of these people are very, very active, very living well with Parkinson's. Let me put it that way. And it actually turned out just fine. I mean, his comment was, gosh, afterwards, he wanted to know if I had recorded it, because there was so much information. He wanted to be able to sit and digest it. And I don't record the group meetings, the speaker series, yes, but not the group meetings. And I said, I do that because I want to protect confidentiality. But then it occurred to me, there's no reason why he couldn't take voice memo on his phone. And I often recommend that to people going into a medical appointment. I mean, even if you have a care partner, there's a lot of information flowing. You know, turn voice memo on. I'm sorry, I'm an iPhone person, so I don't know what it is on a Droid, but I'm sure there is a feature probably like that. There's enough competition between entities that I'm sure, you know, Samsung would have some.
Right.
And just play it. I mean, I'm not like saying, well, David Higgins, who lives on such and such a street, and you're this old. So, you know, if I'm saying Dave, you're not pairing it with a face or whatever. So that,
Yeah,
I'm actually, you know, that's how we're handling it right now. And I was concerned, and then we're not at a place of saying, hey, we're going to run a, you know, newly diagnosed unless we get a lot of that. Because again, this particular population seemed to want to hang together regardless. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And just one thing I wanted to point out that you mentioned is that with really specific needs like duopa, it makes a lot of sense to do it on Zoom, right? And then it can be people from living anywhere, they can dial in, and then you can have that, what would the word be? It's like enough of a group to make it a group, enough participants to make it feel like a real group.
Well,
Diversity, you mean?
Say again?
Diversity?
Not diversity. It's like I'll think of it. It's a critical mass, you know, where you have to get enough participation in order for it to feel like something that can continue on and over time.
Agglomeration.
Yes, all of that, all of it. Thank you. Thanks for my vocabulary. Not happening as well today. I think I need a meal. I think I need some blood sugar. But yes, thank you for bringing that up, Nancy. And I see
that's actually how we ended up going hybrid well before there was the pandemic, is that we had somebody in our duopa group who moved to the East Coast and figured they probably wouldn't find a support group, you know, back in Jersey when they first arrived. And so we did that. And then somebody in our, you know, standard issue group who moved away to Arizona, and they were moving to be by family, but they didn't know the Parkinson's community. And I think I'd shared in a PMDA group before, the February of 2020, the board directed me to stop doing that because it was actually kind of schizophrenic to try and run a hybrid group, and told me, you need to start a Zoom group. Well, little did we know.
Right.
I mean, whether we wanted to or not, that happened then automatically come March. But I'm fascinated at the people who have said, no, we don't want to go back to live. We want our Zoom meeting. And then those who can't wait. And they're really in two completely separate camps. And there may be some overlap.
Right?
Yeah.
So the different things that you can get with each. Great, thank you. Lorenzo, I see your hand up.
We actually had a request at our Parkinson's Walk in August for a hiking group. So I put that out to the group in an email this October, and I'll be damned, I've had 3 or 4 people that are interested. And that's another way that we're planning on getting together in a way that I frankly hadn't anticipated.
That's wonderful. And you don't need, or maybe even want, a large group when you're hiking because it gets out of control, and you know, people have different speeds and the whole thing. So that, I mean, how wonderful, and the more intimate connections that can happen in a small group like that, and moving your body. So I love that idea of hiking. Wonderful. So does that sort of give you some information, things to chew on, David? Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. And then Lauren's saying she has 15 to 20 people who show up for hikes monthly. Wow. And then the subgroups that break off according to ability. Yes. It's wonderful. Okay. Wonderful. Let's head back into, or actually, I see your face, Rachel. Why don't you say quickly what you're doing in regards to the specific support groups and what we plan to do at PMD Alliance?
Yeah. So part of the role that I'm in is essentially to help lift up those smaller affinity groups. So if David Higgins, you say, I'd like to start a newly diagnosed group, there's a couple people that I know that would like to join it. I just don't know how to get it started. It's something that I can help sort of be the liaison for, to help you create the platform for it. PMD Alliance, as many of you know, have that pro Zoom account that you can use. So I would help sort of create that date and time and set it up for you. We would then be able to help you market that through our channels. And so if there are groups that want to be created and you just don't have the tools or the marketing power to do it, reach out to us, and we can kind of help lead the way and help you. Not that we would be the facilitators of the group, but we would just sort of help lift you up. So keep that in mind, all of you.
Yes,
Nancy?
I have a question with regards to forming a newly diagnosed group. Does that group then morph into, because after a while, you're not newly diagnosed.
You're not newly diagnosed.
So what
you kind of graduate.
Right. And then are they graduating, you know, you maintain the integrity of the newly diagnosed group and then, you know, pass them off or invite them into another group? And if so, what's the timing of that? Or do you allow that group that's now its own organic entity to exist and you go form another, you know,
Right.
newly diagnosed group? And David, if you're going to run that newly diagnosed group, should I, you know, pass my newly diagnosed person off to you? Those are just, I'm just talking off the top of my head as I'm
Great
thinking.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah,
great
those are
questions.
great questions.
Mhm.
Because
Lauren.
you in the group that you're in, you create these bonds and these friendships. So, you know, essentially, if you're then graduated to another group, then you're joining the group that's been in existence for a while, that's already created those bonds with one another. So I think there's an idea there, Nancy, that you sort of continue on. And then once a year we create a newly diagnosed group or something like that.
It's like the young onset group. You know, at what point are you no longer, sorry, honey, but you're no longer in the young group. You may have been diagnosed when you were younger, but you know, you're now, and so those special, I mean, with something like Duopa, well, Duopa is Duopa, but
right.
These are different.
Mhm. I think I saw Lauren's hand next, and then we'll go to David.
Yeah, I've actually thought about this with the newly diagnosed group and possibly doing it as a series of classes where it would be discussion groups. So, you know, whatever parameters you set, okay, for 6 months, we're going to meet once a month or twice a month. And there's these topics that we're going to cover that are really important for people that are newly diagnosed so that they can get all the basics and they can talk to each other, and you bring in speakers for them. But it's a set period of time. And once that time is over, that newly diagnosed group is over as far as those classes, but then they can either move to their own group or, you know, move into other groups in the area or whatever, and then you would start a new group. So just food for thought.
So many options.
Chris Boucher.
David, go first.
Let's hear from David. Thank
Just
you.
a couple quick follow-up comments. One is sort of along the lines that you just heard from Lauren. You can we were thinking about in terms of forming chapters. So you have a chapter that's like artificially 0 to 5 or 5 to 10 or whatever. So you have, so there's one newly diagnosed group, but it can have different subgroups. That's more of an administrative thing. The other thing is, you know, we do a lot of education, partially because Dave and I are both scientists. I think it's our inclination. But I've never had anybody, no matter how long they've been in the group or how long they've been diagnosed, complain about hearing something over again. We like to try to poll them from time to time to see what they know about the latest technology. They're always just like, oh, we want more of that. We want more of that. So I'm not sure. I'm torn about the whole newly diagnosed. I think what the newly diagnosed offers is break down the stereotype of what a support group is, not to come in and be a support group. So there's some way we can achieve that function without having to create a standalone support group. Is where we are right now. We don't know where it's going.
I feel like orientation could be the key to that from what I've heard, and that making sure when newly diagnosed people come into a formed group that they understand that whoever's in the room doesn't mean that's going to be you, right? And just making that very clear, because it's the truth. And so it could be a lot more in depth than that, but that's something that I have heard in the past, just to make sure they understand, you know, it's don't assume that you will be in that other person's shoes or what have you. I saw Chris unmute, and then we'll go to Judy if you still have something to say. Yeah, okay.
Okay. This is really intriguing for me. I'm glad we're discussing it, because at our Parkinson's Association, we have had a very comprehensive newly diagnosed program that we have put on. It's been a 2.5-hour program with speakers and a PowerPoint and everything. And prior to COVID, we have put through 850 people in San Diego County that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's. So we're retooling it. We've got a brand new draft curriculum. It's talk about all encompassing. So the intrigue for me now is, given our discussion, you know, if we do it in person or if we do a hybrid or whatever, but at the end of the new session, wow, what a great opportunity to be able to root and commence a support, a newly diagnosed support group, all of the way we've been talking here. So there's a real intrigue, because starting in January, you know, we'll be putting, you know, hopefully 70, 80 new people newly diagnosed right through the curriculum. And then, you know, let's create something that can last afterward.
Mm-hmm. The follow-up part and this actual support part, right? Not just the information, but the support.
But I think, Chris, what David is saying, and I agree with him, because I've thought of this too. Do we want to, I use the word isolate, and I'm not sure that's the right word, but do we want to group them into their own?
Yeah, I know. That's the intrigue. That's the intrigue.
Or do we use the Good Start as the vehicle for the beginning, and then, you know, often, I mean, in the past, it's been, where are they geographically? And that's why our you know, nonprofits are sort of, you know, North County, Central County, UCSD, East County, to position ourselves geographically. Because I'm in agreement with David. I'm not sure doing a newly diagnosed is the healthiest thing to do long term. You know what? If you see somebody like John in a wheelchair, okay, well, how about looking at, hey, here's somebody who had a really aggressive form, and yes, he has dementia, but he's living well. I mean, we don't know what's going to befall us. And I think, so then I look at myself and say, I think I have a responsibility as a support group facilitator to help the newly diagnosed develop a healthy perspective. That's not, they're at that point of fear. We need to move them. And it goes back, I think, to one of the very first PowerPoint slides you showed, Shannon, I think, you know, where fear was on one side and you were moving through. I could really relate to that. I think maybe that's what we're seeing. And we need to acknowledge that and take them where they are, acknowledge it, and then help them move forward, rather than keeping them isolated because, oh God, I don't want to see what might come down the road.
Yes, we hear this a lot.
Agree with you, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, you know, well said. And as we develop the curriculum, we're going to have all of our support group leaders that are here right now and the others respond back to the curriculum, and we can discuss what we really want to do then with the group. and we will do that.
Diversity, you know,
Yeah.
diversity in how we live as people with Parkinson's. It doesn't mean terrible, horrible, awful. It doesn't, or your life is over.
And that's most certainly a component of the Good Start program that, you know, that we put on. I mean, that's the lead in right there, to help allay fear and be very positive and progressive and so forth, and lay that groundwork as the basis.
Wonderful. This is good. Judy.
Thank you. You know, it's great to hear that you have that program. We decided that we would do a equivalent of a Parkinson's 101, but we really didn't want to make it a separate support group. We want it to be something that they come to monthly, or actually we decided we would start in January and it would be quarterly. So 4 times a year we would put on programming for newly diagnosed. And that might be someone that is, we could have a doctor speak, we could also have a physical therapist speak. So it would be sort of a diverse group of 2 or 3 people doing this presentation for us for newly diagnosed. And then I think if you do, for us doing that, it allows people to then get oriented to what our organization is about and what our support groups are about. Because the truth is, after 6 months, after a year, they're not newly diagnosed. They need to know what other people are doing. You know, like, are they hiking? Like, I have several hikers in one of my support groups. They really offer so much support and so much inspiration for people that come in that are saying, I was diagnosed 2 weeks ago. And I think the idea of taking a bunch of people that were diagnosed in that month and having them get in a group together, I think that diversity, the benefit of what works for people, and seeing people that have had Parkinson's for 15 years or 10 years and they're out there mountain climbing, there's some value to that. And they're not going to have that if they're in that group. So I'm not a big proponent of having an isolated, newly diagnosed group, but I think having programming for them is really important.
Right. Absolutely. And just making them realize.
I love what you're doing in San Diego. I mean, you obviously have a great way of doing this, and it's been a very successful program for you.
And what I hear is that it's making sure that they know they're not alone in the beginning. And then, yes, they're gonna learn, they're gonna move to the next stage of acceptance, or, you know, what have you. But just, yeah, at the very beginning, just, they're not alone. Great, thank you. And we've got 2 more comments and then we have to move on. We've got some other material to cover for the last 20 minutes that we have today. Lauren, please.
Yeah, just a question for the group. After I was diagnosed, I went to the Good Start program down in San Diego. I live in Orange County. It was fantastic. And I thought, why the heck don't we have that in Orange County? And we've since started it and modeled it after you guys. So thank you. But my question is, since COVID and we're doing the meetings quarterly, we've had to go virtual. One of the elements that's missing so much virtually is people being able to get that one-on-one time with, like, the rock steady coaches or the physical therapists or the specialists in the area to talk to maybe some of the people from the universities about clinical trials, all the programs that you have in the room. That element is missing when we do it virtually. I don't know if you guys have any suggestions on or what you're doing to handle that part of it.
The one-on-one part.
Yeah, I know when I went down to Good Start, there was all around the room, there's, you know, all the different programs that are available, which is phenomenal for someone newly diagnosed to find out what's available in their area. But when you're doing it virtually, that's much harder to do.
Is it? Maybe just coordinating schedules, perhaps, but yeah.
Well, the people, the program leaders will come, but for everyone to be able to talk to, I don't know, we just haven't figured out how to work it out, and to not have the program be 6 hours long with everyone talking a little bit.
Yeah, that is tricky, isn't it? When it's yeah, breakout rooms might be a little bit crazy to try to do that. Yeah, if anyone has any ideas, please speak up. We can noodle on it. How about Linda? Got your hand up.
Okay. I just want to make a comment as a person with Parkinson. When I first got diagnosed, yeah, I tried to get into the Good Start program, but it unfortunately was at a bad time at that time. Parkinson's Association wasn't functioning. But anyway, eventually I did get that program, but I also asked others if they were attending support groups, and that's what I heard, that they quit attending because they didn't want to see, what the future looked. But for me, I think it depends on your mindset. I think it's much better if it's a diverse group and it's in an area near your home where you can get to easily, because like you said, it gave me hope to see other people who were 10 years into it and they were functioning really well, or it just, listen to how people resolve their issues before I may not get that issue, but at least I know ahead of time. So for me, it's very educational to be in a diverse group, to hear and see what's others are dealing with. And to me, yeah, if you're only newly diagnosed, then you're kind of, you're talking to each other who don't really have experience with what's been going on. So I think to channel from the Good Start program into a support group that already exists is a much better format or idea, I think.
Good to hear your experience, Linda. That's informative. Thank you. Okay, David, we'll hear from you, and then we'll go back to a few slides.
Just one very quick comment, since this is the place to share ideas. One of the things that I do, and I've done since our group began, that's a little bit controversial, is I meet one-on-one with everybody who comes into our network of support groups. It's a lot of work. But I learn their name, so I can call them by name when we're in the big group, and I've had a number of people tell me that really made a difference. But the other thing is I was diagnosed more than 10 or almost 10 years ago, and I'm sort of a living, breathing, it ain't so bad example for someone to have a one-on-one, so it's not threatening. So I just want to throw that out there as a very labor-intensive but extremely effective tool that we've used.
Thanks, David. Yes, we've heard that too from other group leaders, that they take the time, make sure before that person comes to that very first meeting, that they have a one-on-one, either a phone call or in person. Again, it's that feeling of orientation, like let's set the stage, let's give some ideas of what to expect. And so they're not taken aback by anything and freaked out. That seems, it is labor intensive, but very heartfelt and responsible, I think, in some ways, to make sure that people are taken care of on a one-on-one basis. Let's see, Nancy, and then I think Rachel, I saw you unmute.
I'm watching the time tick by, and I can see myself, it's suddenly noon and you're saying goodbye, and I'm like, wait. I just want to stop to say thank you. And I have so thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm sure I speak for everyone. We're super busy, but I would like to know if we can continue this, I don't know, quarterly. This has just been hugely helpful. And it's also really good to see people that, Lauren and I had interfaced, and then during the pandemic, I know with issues I had, I was kind of, not making myself terribly available, but I just thank you, number one. And number two, I was wondering why you were just doing it for Southern California. Well, now I get it. Hello, I'm a little slow on the uptake, but so I don't want to take up more of our actual time, but I just want to throw that out there, and maybe we can figure something out later. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback.
I know Shannon is frozen. I think Debbie, you had your hand up before. Did you have anything you wanted to share? No? Okay. All right.
Just quickly, I sent out a chat asking if anybody wanted the Good Start program curriculum, And if you just put your email there, I'll send it to you, but it won't be done until January, but I will not forget. And when it's done, I'll make sure that everyone gets it, because we've got a whole review process that we have to go through between now and then.
Thank you, Chris. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Oopsie. So anyway, thank you, Chris. And I'd love to see that. I'd love to get in on seeing that new Good Start curriculum. Thanks to Nancy. And yes, we do regionals on purpose because it's helpful for you to network in your area. Ideally, we'd be in person doing this. Yes, I do want to continue Monday in Sync online programming, which is what it's fallen off a little bit since the heavy part of COVID. But if there, I think I'm struggling a little bit with not knowing what content is helpful for you, and maybe just to continue roundtables is helpful. And so not necessarily having topics that are presented on just a space, a time and a space for you to talk to one another. Maybe that's the way to go. Sometimes that's a little too open, but I would love to get your input on any topics, or if you just want a time and a space to be with one another.
Well, if we have time and space, and if somebody has something that they want to bring to the table, or we even take your infrastructure that you've shared with us that we're going to be implementing, but maybe we chew on, we covered everything pretty quickly today. Maybe we agree, hey, we're going to, try and implement this, maybe a particular one or two, and come back to the table and say, hey, what worked, what didn't, what did we try? How will that impact how we might take the next couple of things, 2 or 3 things? And are we just tackling it for one group? Are we, making it grow and cross time frames with a group? I just really appreciate the input, because everybody brings something completely novel and innovative that can only help, I think, each of us improve and continue to grow. So I'm just hugely appreciative of it.
Great. Well, let's just keep the communication going about what you all want, what you need. And that's why I'm here. And so I just am happy to be able to respond and do what I can to fill in gaps for everybody and to help. So just thank you. And please do let me know what we can do. So, okay, that being said, 9 minutes left. I am going to share my screen, and Rachel, bam, she's gonna jump on it, and we'll finish up our last few slides.
All right, try to keep up with me now. But you guys are all, you guys have been speaking about all of these things that I'm going to be talking about already yesterday and today. So Nancy, I think you just said it. How are we going to implement this wellness model, the 6 dimensions of wellness into your group? So essentially, just like you had the idea to do a deep dive to each of these dimensions per month in your group and see how your group reflects on these different dimensions and the fact that they are so intertwined with each other, going back over them after you've done the first 6, going back to them again after 6 months. I think that talking about these things and lifting them up is such an important thing to do, because we are all just sort of in our hamster wheel, living our life, doing what we do. And we really do need to take some time sometimes and think of these different dimensions of wellness and things that you're already doing that you can say, oh, I already do this. That's this dimension of wellness that I cover already that I didn't think about. But maybe I do need to focus on this dimension a little bit more. We want our wheel to be round. We don't want a flat wheel where we're focusing too much of attention on one of those dimensions. So I think implementing this with your group is something that you can really do and give you, meat to work with each meeting that you have.
We'd love to hear how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think the next slide is just give, you have those tools. The printouts that you were given have a lot of information and a lot of like fill in the blanks, kind of marking where you fall in these different wellness categories, and then giving you a visual of what you really need to reflect on and focus on. So you were given the tools, you have the tools. And again, like Shannon said yesterday, the National Wellness Institute has a ton of free resources for you. We've only pulled just a few that we thought were important, but you certainly can utilize the Wellness Institute. Okay. And then again, something that we've discussed is how important play is as adults. And there's been scientific research done on how doing these enjoyable activities has a lot of benefits. So it improves your neuroplasticity and how your brain works. It can help you create and maintain and heal some relationships that are in your life, your well-being, your emotional and mental well-being. And it improves your health and your life, and makes you live a fuller, more fun life. So we have thought of ways to incorporate play into your meetings. So how about if you're having a live meeting, you start your meeting, or you have music playing as people are entering the meeting, something live and upbeat, makes people come in, entering the room with this upbeat rhythm. Sharing your icebreakers around the room. We've discussed the meeting makers, awesome affirmations, kind of like that gratitude chat that we had earlier this morning, where you're just giving people positive information, saying something nice about somebody else gives you a lift also. So complimenting people, sharing what you like about people, a win of the week. We're, like I said, we're going through these hamster wheels of life where something positive happens. You want to bottle it, and you want to share it, and you want to let people know about it. And so creating that sort of win of the week. What was everybody's win of the week or of the day? And then the weather report. I don't know if we did that at all here, but it's very simple way to get your group talking and giving people a weather report, like how's everybody feeling? Are you sunny today? Are you foggy? Are you blustery? And then you kind of get a really good picture of how that person is doing by that weather report. In the group that I facilitate, the Care Partner and Adult Children group that we have a resident joke teller. So some of these chats get heavy, but then there's somebody that comes in the last 5 minutes and sort of gives us a couple of jokes to leave with and laugh about. So think about that. The activities that we could do physically gets people moving and up and out, whether it's having a rock steady boxing person come in and do moves, whether it's you doing this mirroring image that we did yesterday. And then like Lauren does with her group, her walking group. So getting out there, being a little bit physical, the hiking groups that were created and such. Other activities, so whether it's art affinities that people have, are there people that are scrapbookers in your group? Can they share their love of scrapbooking and get other people involved? All sorts of games that can be played. It sounds like Linda's group has some fun games that they play with the 2 truths and a lie and things like that. I don't know who has attended our I Am poetry project, but it's essentially a writing workshop where we empower you to think about who you are outside of this disease. We are all people that have backgrounds and history and where we come from and who we are as a person. And the I Am Poetry Project is just a really beautiful way to show that we are more than our disease. Then the improv stuff is such a fun way to incorporate fun activities into your group. We had an improv program with PMD Alliance, I would say 2 or 3 months ago at this point. But one of the really fun things that I took from it was an activity of doing popcorn. So passing it very quickly to one another and saying, what's not wrong with you? And then it makes you think like, oh, what is good with me? Not, negative, but positive. And so you're popcorning very quickly. What's not wrong with you? I got 8 hours of sleep last night. What's not wrong with you? I had a great cup of coffee this morning. It could be as little as that, but it's just a very positive way to get the crowd up and going. And then you guys have also mentioned the get-togethers outside of your normal group time. So Dave's coffee group that meets in the morning, the hiking group that meets. Is there a group that likes to garden? It sounds like a few of you have started to explore that a little bit. But your groups are so diverse with such richness in the people that are with you that you can learn from. And like you guys also mentioned, the spotlight that you have of one of your group members per month of their special history of who they were or things that they've lived through. So I hope that you guys have given each other a lot of information, but I hope that we have also sort of made you think that there are so many ways to think outside of the box of getting participation, getting people to come back, maybe getting these newly diagnosed people to a point where this group is so great, I love it. There's scary parts to it, but then there's also fun parts to it. So I hope that these ideas resonate with you and that you can utilize them.
Thank you, Rachel. And just to let you know, the slides from yesterday and today will be provided to you in the follow-up email. So lots of words that you can look at later and review. It's a lot to absorb. So yes, well, we have gone over by a minute. I do want to just ask you all to think about this last thing. So what would be your number one takeaway from the workshop, from the session from yesterday and today? You're welcome to put it in the chat. You're welcome to unmute yourself, just, off the cuff, the one thing that bam stood out to you as something to take away. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other. Any thoughts there?
Our interconnectedness and our ability, regardless of where we are physically, to be there for one another, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. If I had a really good memory, I'd remember all 6. Purposefully.
Absolutely. Interconnectedness.
Beautifully said. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Great tools for using wellness as a framework. Yeah. I love frameworks. And they're just an entry point. It's just a way to take off and then you can go wherever with it, but it's just somewhere to start. Love that. Anything else come to mind? Number one takeaway.
Shannon, are you going to solicit suggestions for the next meeting like this that you hold?
As far as curriculum for, say, like next year, or in general, like a smaller smaller check-ins. Because
Well-
yes to both of those things.
Okay,
I would
well,
love- yeah.
Let me be less vague about my question then. But I think you covered it. I would be interested in talking with you, your staff, and the people here with all the experience of how they recruit and train new support group leaders.
Okay, succession planning.
Yeah, succession planning.
That's a big topic.
Yes,
Okay,
it is. Yes, it is.
taken. Thank you. Any other thoughts of takeaways from this little gathering we had?
I thought it just brought up a lot of good topics that some people are thinking about that others don't think about, and vice versa. And it's just very thought provoking. I got a whole bunch of topics I'd like to discuss. Give me time that come to mind. That'd be good to, like somebody was saying before, if we had a follow-up session, it can just be open forum and what we want to talk about. And this provided us with enough ad hoc type topics that we could kill another 3 hours probably.
Right? On and on.
Something that just occurred to me too, I don't know why I hadn't thought about this before, is that maybe we visit one another's groups. I mean, that seems so obvious, and I just hadn't really thought about it. Figure out some way that, through the year, we've each had an opportunity to, I guess, experience one another's community, because within Southern California, we really are a larger community with a common denominator.
Right. One thing that I could offer, and I don't do it automatically, I really just do it if it's asked for. Sometimes the attendees of a workshop like this want to stay in touch and they'd like to have each other's email addresses. Would that be something,
Yes.
thumbs up. Okay. And how about I say, if you prefer to not be on the list, you can let me know, and that's no problem. It's just a capacity thing. I totally understand, no pressure on that, but just you let me know if you do not want to be on the list. And then I'll include that in the follow-up materials, if that sounds okay. And then you can all be in touch with one another. Sound okay? Okay, wonderful.
I want to thank you. And I think that my one takeaway was I love the innovation that people are doing in their groups, and how everyone is a little bit different and trying new ideas. I think that was really wonderful.
The dedication.
It's a pleasure meeting you all.
Yes.
You too, Judy.
Yes. Well, great. Oh, Debbie, I see that you have unmuted.
I did. I wanted to say thank you. I did get a lot of information from this group. It's been wonderful. And we talk about succession programs. There's nothing in my group of anyone having any interest in coming ahead and me moving on. So it's always interesting. And I listen to a lot of people asking me to form second groups and stuff like that. And it's a time requirement too. And I have to always look at that as part of it.
Right.
But I thoroughly enjoyed the program. I am glad that I did it. I took away a lot.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think on that note, we might come to a close here. I just again want to, tell you how appreciative I am of all of you. And yes, the ingenuity, creativity, the dedication that I'm seeing in each of you, showing up here, spending your time learning from one another, sharing, and then everything you're doing with your community. So just heartfelt thanks from all of us to you. And hopefully this is, again, just part of our relationship. This is the beginning of moving forward and staying in touch and learning from one another. So please do feel free to let me know how I can be supportive, how I can get you all together again, and even get you together with other support group leaders to learn. So that is my goal and my purpose here. So on that note, be expecting a follow-up email Probably early next week, you'll have recordings of these sessions to peruse if you need to go back and listen to anything. And then in the next few weeks, you'll be receiving a hard copy packet. Some of you might have our new resource guide already. I think I have records of who has what, but you'll be receiving reference guides and meeting makers in the mail. So, all right. Well, thank you all so much. I hope you have a great weekend. It was lovely sharing with you and learning more about you.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you,
beautiful
Rachel.
human
Thank you,
beings.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you
If
so
we
much.
just clone this group and spread you all throughout the country,
Love that
I think
idea.
we'd all be in a better place. Thank you all for what you do. You're all wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take
Thanks so
care.
much.